following. Also happened by the oil. But let's say l'chaim before we take on the next bit. Yeah, you want to give me just a bit? Not much, just a little bit. Oh, that's enough. Chaim. And that is, this I heard from Rabbi Yoel. When Rabbi Yoel was Masber once, what is a Rebbe? What's a Rebbe? Let me share with you something else from Rabbi Yoel. Rabbi Yoel once asked a bacher, how many Rebbes do you have? And he knew this was a trick question. What do you mean, how many Rebbes? We only have one Rebbe. So he said, the Rebbe's a Baal Moifus, the Rebbe's a Gon Chassidus, a Gon in Nigla. So maybe you have many different Rebbes. But the point he wanted to bring out is, as we'll soon see, these are all expressions of one Nakuda. And the examples, based on the I think the Rebbe Marash, anyway, goes like this. This is the mashal. The mashal is, there was this person who didn't pay taxes, and as a punishment he was thrown into a group, he was thrown into a pit. And him and his family were in the pit. And how did they get food? There was an opening on the top of the pit, which would be opened and food would be lowered down once a day. And they were there for generations. For generations they lived in this pit. Till there came a time that was an argument between the people whether there is a world or whether there isn't a world. One group of people said, yeah, there is a world. There's trees, there's birds, there's a sun, there's a moon, and others said, no, there's nothing. Somehow this food is being dropped in, but there's nothing above the pit. One fine day, a new person was lowered into the pit. And they asked the new person, where are you coming from? So he told them, what do you mean, where I'm coming from? There's a world there, there's trees, there's birds, there's flowers, there's mountains, there's rivers. There's a whole world. So Rabbi Yoel asked, who is closer to this person? The group of people who said there's a world up there, or those people who said that there isn't a world up there? You may say, well, obviously those people who said that there is a world up there, they are closer to the person who just came down from that world. So Rabbi Yoel said no. Those people who said there was a world up there, they don't know if there's a world up there. They're assuming. They're contemplating. They're reflecting on the fact that there's a world. But do they know there's a world? They have no idea if there's a world. On the other hand, the person who came down, he is the world. He's experienced the world. He's lived the world. He is the world. So the mashal is very simple. Do we see Getlachkeit? Do we see Elokus? We learn about it. We know about it. We reflect upon it. There are people who don't even know that. But on the other hand, the Rebbe, he actually lives it. He personifies it. He expresses it. You know, this person did a shidduch, not from a Lubavitch family, and the parents were not crazy hot with the shidduch. And they actually came to 770 when they're very angry. They wanted to go into the Rebbe. You know, how could you, the shidduch? And anyway, the Rebbe said to them, I went up to Shemaim, I went to heaven, and I checked in all of the worlds to see if there was anything about the shidduch that it shouldn't take place. And I couldn't find anything. So I said, the shidduch's a good shidduch. So the parents said, if that's the case, then you know, if a person could say he's gone up to heaven, he's checked all of the worlds, and there's nothing there, we're going to say no to such a shidduch. Or another story, this is in the Men's, was by Sudas Mashiach. The Rebbe was Farbengen, and during the Farbengen he was either talking about politics, whatever, some worldly matters. And between sitters they were singing, somebody came over to the Rebbe, sometimes people did, and he said to the Rebbe, you know, I'm also involved in this matter that you're involved with. And this person started speaking about politics and so on. The Rebbe said, Achron Shal Pesach, Mashiach Suda, now's not the time to speak about politics. What are you speaking about politics for? So the person said to the Rebbe, but you were just talking about politics. You knew exactly what you were talking about till now. The Rebbe said, no. The Rebbe said, I was speaking in Yiddish, but I was speaking to the heavens, and it came down words here on earth. So even though it may sounded like that I was speaking political matters, I wasn't talking about politics at all. I was speaking about heavenly affairs, and those heavenly affairs impacted and came down in this physical world. That's the difference. You know, and this is all leading up to Chafov. 2 years ago, Chafov was by the oil. And I always, if there's people there who sort of like seem out of place, sometimes I'll go over to them and ask them, what brings you here? Why did you come to the oil? Anyway, there was this clean-shaven guy, Chafov, and I go over to him and I say to him, you know, what brings you to the oil? So he says, I'll tell you. He lives in Queens, and he says, I never miss, once a month I'm here. He said, I came to America after the war with my mother. My father, I never knew my father. He was sent to the camps, never came back. And after the war, we came to America. And my mother wanted me to go to yeshiva. She went to one yeshiva, and they told my mother how much it's going to cost. And my mother said she can't afford it. She's a Holocaust survivor. So the Rosh Yeshiva said, well, send your son to public school. So he said, my mother got so angry, she stood up and she grabbed his desk and she flung it at him. And she said, Hitler Yamach Shemoy V'Zichroi, this is what you're telling me, I should send my son to public school after what we experienced. Anyway, at that time, Lubavitch Yeshiva was on Bedford and Dean. You know, if you walk from Crown Heights to Williamsburg, you go walk down Bedford, and it crosses over on Dean, and the corner of Bedford and Dean was a yeshiva, the Lubavitch Yeshiva. Not only did Bedford and Dean take students for free, they actually paid for the trolley ride. Those who had trolleys, they would pay for boys to come. Some of the biggest shluchim come from those families of Chassidim who couldn't afford it. So my mother sent me, I went to Bedford and Dean. And I remember he said a few months after my bar mitzvah, I went into the Rebbe for Yechidus, and after the end of the Yechidus, the Rebbe said I should check my tefillin. And it was a new pair of tefillin, I just had bar mitzvah. So I gave my tefillin in to be checked, and lo and behold, there was no parshas in the tefillin were empty. But he said, that's not what I want to share with you. He said, I was in Crown Heights in the 50s, I worked there. And now, you see what Lubavitch is. There's only one explanation that I can give, and that is that the Rebbe is I'll say it in Yiddish, as it's what he told me. The Rebbe is a shtik Eibishter in a guf gashmi. The Rebbe is a personification of spirituality, of godliness. So this is a guy who learned in Bedford and Dean till after his bar mitzvah. And he saw and realized the impact that the Rebbe has had and has on the world. The Rebbe is a shtik Eibishter in a guf gashmi. Let me share with you, again, we were speaking about before that the Yid, what it means to be a Yid, and Chelik Elokam Imal Mamash. So I want to share with you a story, and also I deal with Chassidish Chevra of the Derech. So there was this, I won't say which Chassidus it was, this particular fellow, not this year Kinnis HaShluchim, the year before Kinnis HaShluchim, he came to the Kinnis HaShluchim, he wasn't a Shliach, but he wanted to come. And he tells me that the day after he got married, he told his wife, it's a strammel and, all the clothing. The day after he got married, he said, I told my wife that I don't believe in God, I don't believe in religion, and she started to cry. So I said to him, why didn't you tell her the day before you got married that you're not religious? He said, no, my father would kill me. I said, well, now your father-in-law's going to kill you. Anyway, cut a long story short, they stayed together and they had a few kids. And my wife was always trying to push me to come closer back to Yiddishkeit. But I'm not interested. One year we go on a cruise and we dock on an island, and my wife says to me, today's Simchas Torah. Maybe there's a Chabad house, maybe take them to Chabad house. I said, all right. So I rent a car, and I take my two boys, we go to Chabad house, we come in, Shliach's there, and we start schmoozing, and all of a sudden, he realizes that I know everything. And I say, I can be your chazan. So there I go to be his chazan, and I take out my camera, my phone, I'm taking photos. Only in their place like this island could you be in a Chabad house, being the Baltfila, taking photos. Anyway, so after davening, sitting around, we're talking, and then the shliach says, oi. I said, what's the matter? He says, I totally forgot I needed to do something, but the goy is no longer here. So I say to him, don't worry, I can do it for you. I can do it. He looks at me and he says, in Yiddish, du bist doch a Yid, but you're Jewish. You can't do it. He said, that was the first time that somebody called me a Yid. Till then, all of my rebbes in Cheder would call me, du bist a Scheigitz, du bist a Goy, du bist a Chamor, du bist a Sharmuad. If it was a good day, I was only a Tam. So all of a sudden, somebody called me a Yid. He said that was the first step on my return to Yiddishkeit. Somebody called me a Yid. We came back a few months later, and we became already friendly and close. And Shliach says to me, you know what, do me a favor. Keep Shabbos. You're here on the island, keep Shabbos. So I say to him, Tzi Shpeit, it's too late, I've already been Mechal Shabbos. He said, that doesn't matter. You'll keep Shabbos from now. Keep Shabbos from now till after Shabbos. I said, what? You can keep half of Shabbos? So I said, yeah, of course, said the Shliach. Keep half of Shabbos. As a result of that, he now lives in a Chabad community, Shem Shabbos, Kashrus, he doesn't wear a strammel, and he came for the Kinnis HaShluchim. The only thing I don't know how it fits in over here, he said the Shliach is a Mashiachist, and whenever he starts speaking about the Rebbe and Mashiach, I tell him, be here. I accept everything you say, but until this point and no further. I said, all right. But again, what we see from over here is things that we take for granted from Chassidus is foreign to the world. And that is how every Yid has a neshama. Because if you stop to think, the Rebbe started in Mitzrayim, and you think to yourself, what's the point putting on tefillin one person one time? What difference does it make? The answer is, it's not the person, the neshama. The neshama is so holy. That neshama does a mitzvah. What could be more incredible than that? L'chaim, l'chaim. L'chaim bracha. No, somebody started niggin. Keili ata v'yagel like everything that the Rebbe said and the Rebbe did was nothing flippant. Everything was eis gerechnet, eis gerechnet. Let me share with you a number of stories where we see this and try to understand it. So my Rosh Hashiva in 770, one of my Rosh Hashivas was Rabbi Mentlik. So he was a Bach who learned in the Pfotz, and he got engaged to a girl from America. And when the war broke out, since he was engaged to a girl from America, he was able to get papers to leave. And he went to say goodbye to the Friedrich Rebbe to tell him that he's going to America. And the boat was going to, from wherever it was, would have stopped in London. And then from London it would cross the Atlantic and come to New York. So Friedrich Rebbe said that if you have time, when you get to London, to go to the Chassidim in London and share with the Chassidus, the Maimon from here, you should do so if you have time. So when he got to London, he realized that there wouldn't be time to go to the East End and then get back to the boat. But however, since the Rebbe told him that that's what he should do, then the Rebbe suggested if he has time he should. He took that he should do it, and therefore he'll miss the boat. He'll try and catch another boat. The boat that he was supposed to go on actually was sunk by the Nazis, and if he would have been on that boat, he would have perished. Similar type of story. This I heard from Rabbi Groner. So he was sent with a group of Bachrim to Chicago, the yeshiva there. Yeah, it was many years ago. And the story he heard from one of his teachers, they had a teacher there who would teach them dictal grammar, Hebrew grammar. And this particular teacher was the one to teach him, and he shared the following story. He said that he had a son who was a very big Zionist, and he wanted to go to Palestine. This was before 1948, it was called Palestine. He wanted to go to Palestine. But I was very worried that he should go to Palestine. And I said, I'm going to go and ask the Friedrich Rebbe whether you should go. And my son forbade me. My son said, no, I don't give you permission to ask. But even though he said that I can't, I did anyway. And I went to ask the previous Rebbe whether my son should go to Palestine. And the Rebbe said he can go, but not now. He can go, but he can't go now. So I told that to my son. I said, even though you told me that you can't go, that I can't go and ask, I did anyway. This was the answer. Not that you can't go, but you can't go now. My son didn't listen to me. My son went, and tragically, the boat that he was on was hit, and everyone perished on the boat. So I went to the Lubavitch Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, and I said to him, look, I can understand that, look, my son asked, he didn't listen, what can we do? But what about everyone else on the boat? Why didn't you save everyone else on the boat? So the Friedrich Rebbe told him that sometimes I say things I'm not even sure why, but this is what I've said, and I don't know the reason why. In other words, it's sort of like the Abishah put these words in my mouth. I didn't know that it was going to perish and everyone's going to die. So there's no such thing as the Rebbe just saying something. Or let me share with you, not just saying which is true, even the Rebbe's actions. Let me share with you a story that I actually saw with my own eyes. So everything the Rebbe did was exact. There was never something that he just did. You know, if you would come to the Rebbe for Mincha, and then 10 years later you came back for Mincha again, the Rebbe would have done exactly the same thing. He would have carried the siddur the same way. He would have walked from his room across the opening there in 770, the foyer. He would have stood in the same place. He would have put on the garter the same way. Would have sat the same way. Everything would have been exactly the same. Everything was exact. And during Chazaras Hashatz, so if you can picture the upstairs room in the Zal, the small Zal, so the door as you walk in, so there's a table, and the Rebbe would sit at the table facing that way, and everyone would stand around in a small room. And during Chazaras Hashatz, the Rebbe would sit like this. With the siddur, the Rebbe would be following Chazaras Hashatz, and he would put his hand like that. And we didn't realize, but on one occasion, the Rebbe didn't put his hand like that. The Rebbe actually put his hand down. And then, about a week later or so, again, the same thing happened. The Rebbe was like this the whole week, and then he put his hand down. Then we realized something strange. And then the third time, we got it. In the 80s, there was this man in Crown Heights. I don't know the reason why, what exactly happened, different things, but anyway, he was in an explosion, and he was terribly injured, and he was deformed, and maybe it was a blessing, he was blind, he couldn't see what he looked like. It was very challenging to look at him. Whenever he came for Mincha, he would be standing more or less where those chairs are, right opposite the Rebbe. Whenever he came, the Rebbe put his hand down. We understood it to mean because just imagine you were coming once. You only came once in your life to the Rebbe for Mincha, and the Rebbe was like this, and that person was there. You may think the Rebbe did that because he didn't want to look at the person's face, even though that person couldn't see, and therefore as a result the Rebbe put his hand down. So everything he ever did was exact. He'd want that person to be embarrassed, and no one should think otherwise. Or, again, this was eyewitness. I saw this with my own eyes. In Tofshin Mem Daled, the Rebbe, I can't remember which foot it was, the Rebbe had a problem with one of his feet, and it was very, very painful for him to walk. In those years still, the Rebbe would be Shabbos at home, and he would walk to 770. But Bachman, we didn't want the Rebbe to walk by himself, so the Rebbe would walk, and about 20, 30 feet behind, Bachman would walk. Now, which Bachman were allowed to walk? Whoever was getting married that week, it was your schus that you could walk behind the Rebbe. So it was a week, Shabbos when I was getting married, so I and all the other Chassanim, we walked behind the Rebbe. So just picture this in your mind. So President Street, the Rebbe was walking down President Street, and we're about 30 feet behind. Every time the Rebbe put his foot down, which hurt him, you could see from the back the pain that it was in. He walked very, very slowly and was agonizing. When he got to Albany, he also walked very slowly. Now what's interesting is there's a whole different discussions, on what I'm talking about, Brooklyn, On Brooklyn and Union, there's a church there. So when I followed the Rebbe only crossed over Brooklyn after the church. Some people say that sometimes he would cross before, but anyway, I saw the Rebbe walked on the other side till after the church, and then he crossed over. Anyway, also on Brooklyn, he walked very, very slowly, but as soon as he got to Eastern Parkway, he walked as if there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. Nothing wrong with him. And then by the Farbengen, so if you saw picture, you could imagine, where the curtain is in the back, there used to be bleachers there, bleachers, and people would stand there, and then there was the shvil, there was an opening where the Rebbe would walk, and then there were benches where people would sit and where people would stand. So I would be one of the standing, wasn't the greatest position, but here, I would be standing there, but we could see the Rebbe walking in and walking out and walking up the steps. Anyway, but we were right next to the Rebbe. So as the Rebbe was walking up the path, that pathway, and you could see the Rebbe's face, every step that he took, you could see the agony etched on his face, the pain that he was in. He walked up the steps, those 3-4 steps to get onto the platform. But as soon as he got onto the platform and where everyone could see him, he walked as if he didn't have pain, nothing was bothering him. End of Farbengen, the same thing. When he walked along the platform, he walked as if there was nothing wrong with him. As soon as most people couldn't see him, he walked. Every step was agonizing. Again, we thought the Rebbe didn't want to cause the Hasidim to be worried about his health, but everything was exact. Nothing was just flippant, nothing just was azoi. So, when we learn the sikhs and we learn what the Rebbe said, everything the Rebbe said, as Benjamin Klein once told me, he never ever experienced the Rebbe saying something and it didn't happen. Never. Always happened. Whatever the Rebbe said, happened, will happen. We just, we need to thank Hashem that we're part of that experience. You learn Tomchei Tmim, Chassidim of the Rebbe, all Chassidim of the Rebbe. Tremendous chus that we have. And we need to utilize that, the gift. At the same time, it's a gift, it's a chus, but it's also his chayvus. I had another Rosh Hashana in 770, his name was Rabbi Pikarski was a Polisher. And he used to always say that a bocher is a businessman. Just say you're a businessman and you go in the street, you meet somebody, you want to sell them your product. A bocher must always have something to sell. There shouldn't be a situation that you go somewhere, Shabbos, a meal, or anywhere, and you don't share with somebody something from the Rebbe, Chassidus, Dvar Torah. People are yearning, people want to hear it. But even, if we're not going to share and learn and teach, who is? I make a point, because of the things I do, I travel a lot between Williamsburg and Barber. And there's a place where people wait to get lifts. I always make sure to stop when I fill up my car. It's about a 40-minute drive from Williamsburg to Borough Park. And people sit in the car, and then I say to them, "The mind says, beginnen. You think this trip is for free? It's not free, I charge. Darf so in Dvar Torah. You have to say Dvar Torah." Now, of course, they never have anything what to say. I said, "Okay, die guys nicht so gut, guy nicht so good." So for the next 40 minutes, I'm here as I sich on the parsha from the Rebbe, thoughts from the Rebbe. You have a captive audience. I was once taking a summer bocher somewhere, and it's very interesting. He actually came from Etzol, went to the oil, and he said to me, "Du weißt was? The Barber Bucheram, so allemaal etwas was zu sagen von der Rebbe," which was very nice to hear. In other words, it always was something to say from the Rebbe. So you really need to make a point that you always have something from the parasha, from the Rebbe, a thought from the Rebbe. There's so many beautiful things Nowadays there's so much available in English or Tamsis, you don't have to learn the whole Sefer, if you just get a thought, an idea. And it's good, to learn it, to practice it, to share it, and just to think it through and realize the Reichkeit, the richness of the thought of the Rebbe. And, it shouldn't be a week that you don't have something to share. You need to find somebody to share it with. Obviously. Whatever, that's another thing which a Bocher needs to have. He needs to have thoughts from the Rebbe in his head, not just for himself, but to share with other people. To share with other people Chidushim of the Rebbe. What the Rebbe said on this topic or on that topic. And sometimes you really only appreciate the Rebbe's Chidushim if you see what other people say. So that's another level of learning. On the same one topic, you see what people say, and then you see what the Rebbe says, and you see the Reichkeit, the richness of the Rebbe's interpretation, and the truth of the Rebbe's interpretation. So L'chaim, that we shall learn the Rebbe's Czarist, and have the schus to then share the Rebbe's Czarist with others. L'chaim. The Rebbe, a famous letter of the Rebbe Rashab, where he was the first one to tell us that Yud Tes Kislev is Rosh Hashana of Chassidus. Rabbi Schneur refers to Chassidus as Oyer B'chayis, Oyer. It illuminates. So, what does it mean it illuminates? Let me share with you, I think, the following of which will illuminate what it means to illuminate. I don't know if you heard the very famous chassid, his name is Rabbi Schneur. So let me tell you a little bit about his background and then you'll appreciate it. So Rabbi Schneur started off life as a satmar in Williamsburg. He was a Rosh Yeshiva of the elite Bochrim and Satmar. And in Satmar they also learned Tanya. So he learned Tanya and he had questions on Tanya. And in the summer, his yeshiva, which was exclusive for the top Bochrim, they would go to the mountains. And there was a Lubavitch guy, I don't know who it is, who would sometimes come to daven in their yeshiva. So Rabbi Schneur saw a Lubavitch there. He thought he's a good person to ask Yishaylas on Tanya. So he asked him Yishaylas, and this guy realized that this is above his pay grade. He doesn't know the answer to this question. And he said, you know what, I'll organize that you should come and speak to Rabbi Yoel. So he tells me, and I'll explain why he shared with me all this information. He tells me he had heard about Rabbi Yoel, but he thought Rabbi Yoel was like a professor with a bow tie, you know, aufgeklärt, you know, modern and intellectual. He wasn't really interested, but okay. Anyway, so the first time he comes to the house, late at night, you know, he comes in and then he sees Rabbi Yoel. Anyway, cut long story short, he spends, it just goes on and on until eventually he couldn't take it any longer, and he told everyone in Lubavitch he had to basically escape. But this is interesting, which some people may not know. His wife, she ran a school for girls in Williamsburg with girls who were challenged intellectually or physically, whatever, not a mainstream school. And she was told that she can't leave until she's organized that every girl is in another school. So her husband had nearly been killed, you know, the Satmars wanted to kill him. They beat him to a pulp, but they weren't allowed to leave until she had found a school for every one of the students. So what happened was he moved to Barber, he was moved to Barber, and so Bochrim from 770, difference to make, we more or less lived in the house to protect him. So with some other, we were on one shift. You know, there were like people in the street looking up, oh, that's mental Vecht and this. And he was so bad, he was like skin and bones. We actually have to carry him to the bathroom because he couldn't walk. He was so badly beaten up, bruised all over. So many years later, I told him, "Du bist mir schuldig." So he said, "Was bin ich schuldig?" I said, in Yiddish, I'll say in English. I said, I was one of the Bochrim 770 who was guarding you. So I want to ask you a question, and I want to hear what you have to say. So I said to him, you know, you saw great people. You saw great people. What was so unique about the Rebbe that drew you to the Rebbe? What was so unique? So he said to me, all right, so this is what he shared with me. He said one year, Simchas Torah, he decided that he's coming to Crown Heights. Of course, he didn't get dressed like in Satmar. He looked like a Lubavitch or whatever, and he was staying by Benjamin Klein. And some of his Talmidim, many of them became Lubavitches, came running from Williamsburg and to tell him that they heard that in Satmar there came a thing out that they're going to kill him. And if they say they're going to kill him, they're going to kill him. And he's taking it seriously. He doesn't know what to do. So he tells me he runs to 770 to ask the Rebbe, and he sees eventually Label Brona comes, and he tells the Label the whole story, and the Label says, look, now's not the time, you can't speak to the Rebbe now. However, what I will let you do is you can stand by the door. If the Rebbe sort of acknowledges and whatever, and you then feel that you can ask, I'm not going to pull you away, but I'm not going to tell the Rebbe anything. So he says to everyone there, he says, I'm thinking to myself, what will the Rebbe say? Maybe the Rebbe will say, go straight to the police. Maybe the Rebbe will say, send a delegation to the heads of Satmar. All these different theories are going through my mind. What will the Rebbe tell me? Anyway, so I'm standing by the door. The Rebbe comes, I'm waiting, I don't say anything. The Rebbe nods in my direction and says, Good Yom Tov. And I take the opportunity and I say, as Mana Talmidim, my students have come now from Williamsburg, and they've told me that in Satmar, there's Achroza, that they want to kill me. I don't know what to do. So he says, the Rebbe looked at me, the Rebbe says, es ist doch Yom Tov, today is Yom Tov, und Yom Tov darf man sein besimcha. And on Yom Tov, you need to be happy. And that was it. So I thought to myself, by the Rebbe, Torah, Shulchan Aruch, that's a true reality. Everything else is not reality. By everyone else, there's a world, and then there's Torah mitzvahs. By the Rebbe, there was only Torah mitzvahs. So Shulchan Aruch says, on Yom Tov you need to be besimcha. What are you worrying about people trying to kill you? What is that going to do with anything? You need to be besimcha, it's Yom Tov. So he said, by the Rebbe, he saw a likus upshittus. By the Rebbe, the world was only spirituality. The world was only Gettelkeit. There was nothing else. And that, he said, he never saw by anyone else. And that what drew him to the Rebbe, to Chassidus. And really, if you stop to think, obviously, none of us will ever be on that level. But the more Chassidus you learn, the more your perspective of life changes. And the more you begin to see the world totally different. And sometimes we don't realize it because we learn Chassidus and we don't know of a different type of life, a different type of world. But you take somebody who never learned Chassidus, take somebody who learns Chassidus, and you begin to have a conversation with them, things which we take for granted is, by them, it's non-existent. The most classical example, you ask the average Litvish or whatever, why do you do Torah mitzvahs? So he says, what are you talking about? Schar, I get schar, Gan Eden. So you could say, well, that makes sense, people work 30, 40 years so they can retire, buy a house in Florida, and they retire. So this person is not Mekushim Dig. He's not worried about a house in Florida, he's worrying about a house in Shamayim. So he's doing Torah mitzvahs. So he's going to have a palace. He's going to have an extra room every mitzvah he does. Is another brownie point. His house is getting bigger, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting nicer. But I say to them, but isn't that self-worship? Isn't that somewhat like a Avodah Zarah? Instead of, you're good, you're a nice guy, you don't want a mansion in Florida, you want a mansion in Shamayim. But it's just for yourself. Not serving Hashem, it's self-service. You're serving yourself. They don't get it, but then slowly it dawns on them and says, which is true. The Rambam says that, luckily there's no women here, that's how women, children, and shreitim serve the Eibishter. But obviously that's the lowest darga. But by then, that's the ultimate darga. Olam Haba, where they're going to, they've got 5 Masechtas in their hand, or 6 Masechtas that they're going to carry with them. And, Chassidus speaks about Bittul, and which is the they say a joke, there was this guy was in Kippur, in Kippur we do Kodim and Shtachbim, and the rabbi falls down, Kodim and Shtachbim, and he says, "Ich bin garnished, ich bin garnished." And the peasant of the shul also falls down, "Ich bin garnished, ich bin garnished." And then some Ani, some poor Shlamazel does the same thing, "Ich bin garnished, ich bin garnished." So the president says to the rabbi, "When did he become a garnished?" So the more, it's hard to believe, but the more we learn, the more it brings bittul to us through the Chassidus. But if you don't have Chassidus, the more a person learns, the more of a Balgaiva they become. I know so much, it's all about self. And, but we take it for granted. We take it for granted. But it's not true. It's a blessing that we have which we don't realize. How the Rebbe taught us and educated us. And it's a gift that we have. If you stop to think, the Maimon Matzah we're in now, in a little bit of a sense, when the Rebbe Rashab wrote that letter, was a similar situation. The Rebbe Rashab would only Farbengen 3 times a year. That year Yud Tes Kislev was no Farbengen. So they got a letter. And the story is told, the Friedrich writes about it in Kundra Zamayim, that when they received the letter in Lubavitch, they made copies of the letter. It must have been the internet was down, so they couldn't send out an email. So they made copies of the letter, they sent it out. And wherever the letter arrived, when it arrived and they read the letter, they made that into a Yom Tov. That became their Yud Tes Kislev. The Friedrich Rebbe writes that in Brisk, when they received the letter, they wanted to make the day Yom Tov. So they thought, I think they got it about Hanukkah time, they wanted to celebrate it in Hanukkah. So Reb Chaim Brisker, I'm sure you studied Chiddush Reb Chaim al Rambam or different places, but Chaim Brisker said, no, he said, Ein Marvin Simcha b'Simcha. You can't mix one simcha with another simcha. You have the simcha of Hanukkah, and you have the simcha of Yud Tes Kislev, each one independent. Or also famous Reb Chaim Oizer, the Achiezer of Chaim Oizer, he was the chief rabbi of Vilna, he was a Pesach Ador, and he had somebody on his bezin, I don't know who it was, but Friedrich Rebbe writes, it was a little bit of a cow, and he started to make fun, and he said, the Mishnah says, Arba Rosh Hashana, man, there's only 4 Rosh Hashanahs, and now the Rebbe writes that Rosh Hashana for Chassidus, there's a new Rosh Hashana, Yud Tes Kislev. So Chaim Oizer certainly wanted to tell him, because this person was a bit of a cow. He said, by then they get Yom another Rosh Hashanah, and by uns and by us, it's getting less. So, the impact that this letter had, that the people, they made it into a Yom Tov. Or going back to the times of the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Schneur, the story is told that he said that, why do we celebrate Yud Tes Kislev? Well, the Alter Rebbe was lacking anything, he needed anything. You're going to say maybe he needed Big Day Shabbos, he didn't have Big Day Shabbos. So no, the Alter Rebbe had material that every Erev Shabbos he would rip off a little bit of the material, connect it to his clothing, and that was like the Big Day Shabbos. So why are we celebrating rather it was for the Eibishter. As a result of Yud Tes Kislev, the Alter Rebbe, Yud Tes Kislev, the Eibishter, named the Eibishter Chassidus, and the revelation of Geslochkeit came to the world. And therefore, that's why we celebrate. And he got up and he started to dance. We're dancing the Gilui Elikus, the revelation of godliness that came into the world, that the world wouldn't have had without the Gilui, without the revelation of Chassidus. You know, and each Rebbe added, for example, we know the Mitzvah Rebbe was in prison. Why was the Mitzvah Rebbe, why was he put in prison? The Alter Rebbe was put in prison, we know, because he was spreading Chassidus. And then we are told, he writes that the Friedrich, that the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid came to see him, and they had a whole discussion, and they said, no, you start and continues keeping on spreading Chassidus. All right? So he won the battle. So why was the Mitzvah Rebbe put in prison? So Chassidim explained, because we know the Mitzvah Rebbe added to the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus. One line of the Alter Rebbe, Mitzvah Rebbe could have spent tens and tens of pages. So maybe there was a Gilui, a revelation that the world wasn't ready for. And as a result, the Mitzvah Rebbe had to go to prison. And then till now, he also won the battle. He also was released from prison. And each Rebbe, as the Rebbe writes about the Friedrich Rebbe, which is about himself as well, when we say a Rebbe's Mamala Mokim, means he fills it completely and then he adds to it. So the Rebbe then, our Rebbe, takes from all of the previous Rebbeim, then adds to that. You know, and therefore we have the shaykhs to the Rebbe. It's something very dear and precious, and we have to cultivate that. L'chaim, l'chaim. I think people are Farbengen. Yeah. Anyway. Gejumped, February, gejumped. Boom. Thank you
very much. When are you davening the FESTIVE? Are you getting an early plane or?
Yeah, because I'm going to New Jersey for Shabbos.
You're driving?
No, to Farbengen. I'm going to Farbengen, New Jersey. So I'm 7:30. What time? 7:58 flight or something? I don't know.
Well, what flight?
Yeah, I'm catching a flight tomorrow morning.
No clue.
Yeah. I'm catching a plane tomorrow morning. Yeah. Thank you
very much.
Yeah, pleasure. And I'm glad I was here by your Sudasaidah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, last year was the first one. This is the second.
Baruch Hashem.
So you had a good report last year. You know?
Okay. Oh, good to hear. Yeah.
It was a lesson, you know. I get to apply all the state of Southern up until they used to apply Mamash Lames.
Yeah. Wow. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. You were able